And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week.
It's the middle of July. Hard to imagine that it's there already, and the midpoint of summer, and the Bidens are back in the news. Joe Biden, overseas for the NATO summit, chose to skip out on the NATO dinner, the welcoming dinner there with the world leaders, the third such time he's done so on an international trip. And the White House said, well, he had 4 days of work ahead of him. Imagine that, 4 full days of work for the President of the United States, so he had to take a nap. But he found time to go to the beach on Saturday before, and we saw the embarrassing footage of what happened there. It's really tragic that the world gets to see our president in such pitiful shape. Americans realize it. It's going to be a big factor in the campaign next year. Nobody wishes bad health or bad fortune on the president of the United States, but this really isn't the image that we want to be sending to the world at a particularly critical time. I've said before that the problem with these foreign trips is that Biden always decides to come home. And back at home, the Secret Service is now asking the American people to believe that they can't tell us who was responsible for the cocaine there. Think about that. I mean, my Democrat counterpart on local television says, oh, the suggestion that there was cocaine in the White House. It's far more than a suggestion. It's proof positive that it was there. The question is, how did it get there and who was responsible? And the Secret Service is telling us that there is inconclusive evidence. I mean, this isn't the first time we've heard, oh, gee, we have inconclusive evidence. We were told that about the leak at the Supreme Court. We've been told that about several other things, each one of them, incidentally, inuring to the benefit of Democrat politicians. But what if it hadn't been cocaine? What if it had been ricin or anthrax or any other number of really, really dangerous substances? I mean, they evacuated the White House over this, for crying out loud. And then they tell us, well, gee, we really can't. There is a serious problem here. There's either ineptitude or an out-and-out cover-up. We'll have to, wait and see how it comes out. But the last question hasn't been asked yet about this. And I'm saying we'll be very interested to see the truth. And at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue this week, FBI Director Christopher Wray went before a congressional panel to try to explain some of the actions of a once vaunted American institution. I mean, growing up, I remember the FBI with Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. on television and with J. Edgar Hoover out on the streets, and everybody revered what they did, the lawmen who were always out to get their man. Today, an awful lot of Americans think that there is a two-tiered system of justice in the United States, one for Democrats and the other for conservatives and Republicans, and a lot of questions remained unanswered despite the rhetoric that Christopher Wray produced during that hearing. And we'll have to get into that next week a little bit more deeply, because a lot of those questions really, really are important to be answered. And as yet, we're still waiting for some. And speaking of the middle of summer and the midpoint of the best season of the year, baseball hit its All-Star Game week, and what a classic that game was. The first time in a decade that the senior circuit, remember they are that, wins the Midsummer Classic. And Elias Díaz, a catcher for the Colorado Rockies, emerges as the most valuable player. What a story you have there. A guy who was released or waived, I guess, by the Pittsburgh Pirates a couple of seasons ago, 32 years old, obviously in the twilight of his career. First All-Star appearance, becomes the first Colorado Rocky to win the MVP award, banging out a home run with the Phillies. Nick Castellanos on base. He reached there on a walk, and they beat the American League 3-2. Great game. Great middle of the summer, a lot of baseball yet to be played, and we'll be talking about that from time to time, as well as the really important stuff that faces our country. But for now, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week.